So if you're stuck looking for a blueprint to figure out how to start your sourcing strategy, this is the video for you, which I'll go through a playbook that every e-commerce business needs. First, let's talk about the trends that are happening in the market today. So right now, there's a market shift between 2 points. One is product costs are increasing in China. Now, maybe not to the rate of inflation in your country, but it is happening in China if you are sourcing from China. So this is something to consider as you start sourcing more goods from China. The second thing is, with this whole unknown tariffs issue, especially if it's between China and the US, that does affect freight rates, and these rates change on like a weekly, if not daily basis. So it's also good to know that this is happening, and if you time how to find suppliers, how to source your goods, and how to ship them properly, you can avoid costly mistakes because of the changing market. So with this information, how can you build your own roadmap to go ahead and prevent overspending on goods that you've been using for a while for your business? Well, the first step is have your factory selection strategy down to the T. And I'm going to give you a framework using 4 R's. The first one is reliability, responsiveness, resources, and reputation. How you verify these is actually quite easy. I'm going to show you right now how you do so on 1688, and I'll be doing it live. But you can also do this on Alibaba or other platforms like that. So first, I'm going to go into 1688. I'm on my homepage. Notice I'm using Google Chrome, and I'm just going to pick 2 random suppliers. So 1, 2. Now, when you go to the product here, you can see there's a lot of information, but I want you guys to focus on this drop down arrow here. Note that everything's in Chinese now. So what I'm going to do is I'm using Google Chrome. I have the Google Translate plugin. I want to right click and click translate to English. And if you do have it plugged in, the extension, it's also here. So now everything's in English. So how to get a quick snapshot for this is you simply drag over the drop down arrow, and here it gives you an overview of this specific supplier. So they've been in business for about a year, kind of new, so a little bit of a red flag there. You can see they'll have over a 4.5 star rating. Now this is just for 1688, by the way. They also have the return and exchange service, their quality, their logistics experience, not just in China, maybe overseas if they sold overseas before, how quickly it can solve disputes. So if there's an issue with end customers and the supplier, how quickly they can resolve any procurement issues. And then the consulting, that part is kind of important. A lot of these companies, they just want the volume. They don't really have time for consulting. If they had time for consulting, then they would have their own distribution channels. And that's where you come in. Like, you offer them another distribution channel to be able to source their goods. So from my experience, a lot of these factories, like you're talking to the factories, they don't really focus on the consulting part. So don't bank on that. I could be wrong though. Maybe you have a supplier that does. So this is an interesting product. This is looks like a solar powered battery bank. And then again, you can go here on the drop down and you get a snapshot. So 5 years in business. So it's a little bit more of a green flag there. Same service, 4.5 rating. But then here you see they have a lot higher ratings when it comes to logistics, communication. And this kind of gives you like a framework just to start, whether you want to evaluate to work with this customer or not. They've been in business for a while. They're responsive. They get good quality ratings, and they can deal with disputes quickly. Whereas the first one we just saw is just 1 year in business, and they're still kind of new to this market. So I wouldn't bank on it. So you need to be a little bit more detailed when it comes to vetting suppliers. And I actually have a video about how to vet them deeply when it comes to compliance and certifications that I'll mention at the end of this video. But speaking of that, if you think it's quite overwhelming to find legitimate suppliers for your e-commerce business idea, or if you want to expand your product line, feel free to sign up for our website where we can offer you the services to find a supplier that is vetted and it can actually ship to your country, reduce a lot of the headaches that happen when it comes to sourcing goods from China. You don't need Alipay, you don't need a passport, you don't even need to come to China, and we can help you source goods, whether it's directly on 1688, Taobao, Pinduoduo, or if you simply want some consultation about how to find the right suppliers for your business, feel free to reach out. Now let's talk about the negotiation strategy. So we talked about the trends that are happening, cost of products are getting more expensive, cost of shipping is getting more expensive, how to vet your suppliers. I did a really quick way of how to vet your suppliers. But next is a negotiation strategy, which is important. Seasonality is important in China. So what do I mean by that? If you haven't lived in China or don't know, China also has their Black Fridays, right? So if you're from the US, you know what Black Friday is. Like, it's supposed to be the cheapest day of the year that you offer sales. China has a couple. So one is like the halfway year point, and there's more than this, but the overall ones is like the halfway. So the 18th of June, they have big sales there. The biggest online sales that happen though is 11/11, so double Singles Day, where usually it's not a specific day now. It used to be in a specific day, like at midnight that day, but over the years, it's since they've gotten so successful selling products, it's expanded over like a 2 or 3 week period from the middle of November until the end of December. And they also have the Cyber Monday, which would be 12/12, so December 12th. Now, I'm not saying that you have to wait for these days to negotiate with suppliers. It's not like that, but at least if you're in that season, you can kind of like feel it out to see how much suppliers are willing to negotiate their pricing. Now, if you can show them that you have a long-term intent to do business with them for a while, the more data you have, the better. So if you're brand new, show some research and some customer discovery information to them that you have customers waiting for this product right now, and that you expect a monthly volume of a certain amount. This kind of helps. So this is if you're brand new. If you're an established business, you should have data on your e-commerce store. I mean, I run an e-commerce store. I have data. If I need to show them, be like, this is how many products of this kind are being sold, this is how many products of this kind being sold, I have this distribution channel for you. You want to sell yourself to the supplier that you can be a distribution channel for them so that you can get better pricing. So the more data you can show them, don't focus so much on the emotion and the appeal of how you can help people and the marketing. That's better meant for your end customer, right? The emotional appeal and all that. When it comes to suppliers in China, show me the money. Show me how much you can sell. Do you have data to back it? Do you have historical data you can show me? Do you have a website? Do you have a sales channel already established, etc.? That helps. So it's important to have those strategies in place so that when you actually filter your suppliers, you can offer different tiered pricing and negotiate better pricing for your product. Once you've done the negotiation with them and you're satisfied with the supplier, then you need to find how you're going to maintain the quality control. Now, some suppliers do quality control in-house, especially the bigger companies they should have a QA QC program, quality assurance, quality control, where unless this product goes through these steps and has been checked by this many people, it won't go into the market. A lot of big companies do this. They usually have like the overstock or the excess that just doesn't meet the quality standards, although it may be good enough, but the lower you get the error rates, the lower chance you will get of chargeback and refunds and all that happens. So how are you going to do this quality? Are you going to do the quality check at the supplier, put it all in their hands? And these quality checks, when you do it, is also important. So it's not just when they finish the product. You might have to, especially if you're doing a sample or if you're like developing a product from scratch, there's quality checks for pre-production, mid-production, and then pre-shipment. So usually the pre-production is like the 3D modeling and saying, okay, this pocket goes here, this pocket goes here, this pocket goes here, the zipper can go here, this can hold this much weight. And then it's just like a digital way to do it, right? That's the pre-production quality checking to make sure, okay, this meets what I'm looking for. Then there's the mid-production where they're coming out with the samples and maybe they have 3 different samples for you to pick from, 3 different suppliers. I always recommend to have more than one supplier in case something happens to a supplier and they go bankrupt. It's happened. At least you're protected. And the pre-shipment quality control, which I recommend that you keep close eyes on before the product leaves China, especially if you're using platforms like 1688. Make sure you have someone checking the product before it leaves. Some of these suppliers can be very sneaky. Like if you haven't built a good relationship with them and trust them, if they know you're shipping overseas, once that product leaves China, even if it's the wrong thing, you're most likely not going to get any money back unless you don't use a platform like 1688. You have lawyers involved, you have invoices involved, you have all their information. Unless that's in place, then you're probably not going to get your money back, just frankly speaking. So doing these small tweaks in the QC process really will accelerate and will save you a lot of costs down the road. It's a big pain in the butt to do it in the beginning, but once you establish a system to do it, you're going to save a lot more money in the future. So some examples of people that wanted to overcome the quality checks. As I mentioned, there was a shoe supplier that they were doing business for a while and then they know the products are going overseas. And since there was no quality check between the factory and arriving to the imported country, like where you're exporting the goods from China, where it's being imported to, there were no checks in place. They sent like half the products on purpose and they pocketed the rest. So don't want that happening to you. You can prevent it by having some kind of a check in the middle. Another sneaky way is seasonality, right? So even the scams happen everywhere. And I have a video about how to prevent scams. But you know, they get kind of sneaky and it's quite sad. Where let's say Easter's coming up and you need Easter decorations to replace the goods in your store. If you have a brick and mortar store that sells decorations and it's about Easter time. And then when you place the order, you plan everything right. You plan the timing of the shipment to arrive at a certain time so that you have at least some leeway to stock the goods and then get your store ready to sell to the Easter. Well, it's happened where the supplier, there was no checks between the factory and the shipping agent or the freight forwarder. And a lot of the times, like if you don't have a good freight forwarding partner, you're gonna run into issues because they look inside with x-rays, but they don't really check, hey, is the whole order there? They just care about shipping your products from point A to point B. You have to be careful on who you pick with your partner. They ended up getting Christmas decorations. So it was actually the overstock that the supplier had. They needed to get rid of the Christmas decorations. So they took advantage of that, put those inside the container instead of the Easter decorations. And then the customer obviously lost in the end there. And you want to avoid that. So it's important to have a workflow to actually execute your plan. So what I would do is first I would build a timeline. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can just have a month timeline, month calendar. Just say, okay, during this week, I'm going to look for a supplier. So I'm going to use 1688, Alibaba to look for a supplier for this good. I recommend you shortlist at least 2 to 3 different suppliers. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket because sometimes suppliers run into, operational cost issues and they end up going bankrupt. Happened to someone I know where the supplier was in business for like 5 years. Then all of a sudden they're reaching problems and then they were asking for money outside the platform and then they just go bankrupt and they're not in business anymore, which is why it's important to vet your suppliers and make sure they're licensed in China to actually do business and how long they've been in business. Then put deadlines of when all these suppliers are going to be decided on and plan your freight forwarding weeks, like plan your shipping weeks or months in a logical manner. So here's an illogical manner. If you want goods to arrive at your warehouse or at your location, let's say by March, you don't want to plan the shipping in the middle of Chinese New Year's, which is usually happens between January and February each year. It's different every year, but you got to plan that. You got to know a little bit about it, especially if you're sourcing from China. So don't be trying to ship something in the middle of Chinese New Year's because no one's working. It's very hard to get approved for overtime. There's usually a lot of bureaucracy that happens. Same with Golden Week, the first week of October. Don't be doing any freight forwarding or any ordering at that time. You got to plan it correctly so that you can receive the goods on time. So you got to have the end goal in mind of like, I need these goods by this time for this market, especially if it's like a new product that you're trying to put out into the market and test out. So just kind of give you a recap, things I would recommend for this framework and the strategy is first figure out who you're sourcing from and how you're going to source from them. So I just showed you 1688, Alibaba. There's plenty of websites where you can find Chinese suppliers. Second is how to deal with your QC, like how you're going to verify that all the products are there, that you're not going to get scammed and that you're going to receive everything, not just on time, but they're not broken, they're working, and you're going to reduce your chargeback or your refund methods. And then third is the timing. How are you going to time purchasing the product so that you can ship it by a certain day and you can receive it by a certain day? All of this can be planned in one calendar to kind of give you an idea of what it will take to actually get this product to you and to ultimately to the end customer. I usually don't recommend the drop shipping method unless you really know what you're doing because it costs a lot of money to ship individual goods from China to the end customer. Usually what ends up working is they buy in bulk, then they place it in their warehouse in their country, in their warehouse or third-party warehouse. And then as they get orders on their website, they use that warehouse, whether it's third-party or their apartment, their house, and then do the last mile logistics. That tends to be quite profitable compared to the drop shipping, which is becoming less and less profitable each time. So if you found value from this video, please consider subscribing, share it with someone that's stuck and needs some kind of a framework to find suppliers for their business ideas. And if you want to know how to negotiate with Chinese suppliers to get the best pricing, watch this video right here.